It's coming. It's coming through blank on. I think I'm live somewhere, but not on Facebook. Now I've lost the camera here. Hey, it's Drew from Sleep With Me, and I was just trying to figure out this live streaming software. So I don't know how we can figure out the chat. So bear with me here. I'm Drew. I make Sleep With Me podcast. Podcast puts you to sleep. I guess you probably are following me on Twitter if you're seeing this. I'm just trying to figure out this like OBS software, and you gotta make your mistakes live in person sometimes. And when you make the podcast, it puts people to sleep. I guess you can't, you can't be perfect. So I don't know if you're watching it somewhere, I don't have a way to communicate with you right now. So I'm trying to give you my full attention. Thanks for checking out this live stream. Big mistakes and all. I'm trying to get. I guess okay. Let's do this. Let's calm down. Let's take a breath. I forgot to adjust the background lights too. I'm trying to figure this out here, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's see. That just says Sleep With Me podcast is live. What happens if I press this, though? I think if you're watching on Twitter, let's see. Awkward. So I'm Drew. I make the podcast to put you to sleep, and I guess I'll try to do two things at once, just while I'm trying to do this. If you don't listen, the podcast is not much more polished than this. It is more professionally done, but it's a podcast with meandering bedtime stories to try to put you to sleep, to try to ease you off into dreamland, and it doesn't look like it's live anywhere but Periscope. So at least this is only going out in one place, I think. Wait a second. Now I can't even load the encoding software. So, interesting. So if you are out there, okay, I'm loading Periscope now. This should solve everything. Log in. Okay, people are clicking on it, so don't worry. Soon I'll be able to answer questions if there are any. Okay, my phone's froze. What kind of questions do I get? Do I use the podcast to put myself to sleep? The answer to that question is no. That's a good question, though. When I listen to it, like usually if I listen to it at night, I will be like, listening to it in a way like not super critical, but trying to figure out like what if someone asks me a question. Okay, I'm trying to get Periscope loaded. Enable loaded notifications. Don't need to do that. Accept terms. Okay, looks like I'm up there live. And looks like there's about 4,000 videos that a couple of people had let me know about. So there's 17 people watching. Is there a place on Periscope to even ask questions? Boy, I just fell down a rabbit hole. Oh wait, yeah, there is. There's okay. I just saw a chat. Okay, I'm close. Okay. So, oh man, I just saw Julian sit here, a professional. Okay, so here I am. I can kind of look at my phone and see this chat. So this is my first attempt at live streaming something through like a live streaming software. That's why I'm not super on my A game right now. Hey, Julian. I wanted to thank you in person, but I guess I could do it on this first live stream. Thank you so much for telling people about the podcast. I'm so glad it helps you, and really some great people. You've helped some people fall asleep by recommending the show, so I can't thank you enough. Okay, so I'm trying to test out this broadcasting software. I think someone just asked, is this a Samson microphone? I think this is ATR 2100. I think there's a Samson mic that's the exact same version. I think it's like the Q2U, and it's a mic that has a XLR and a USB connection. And this is just, so I think there's like two Audio-Technica versions, one Samson version and one Knox version. So if somebody can give me a something in the chat so I can see if I'm following the chat on my phone. This is a live Sleep With Me testing 1, 2, 3. But so I was trying to figure out this software. It's called OBS to try to be more available and connect with you guys a little bit better here on my Saturday night. Hey, the Book Hooker, Tom from New Zealand, John B. from Florida. So a little test out here. Thanks, Julian. Thanks, Fresh Squeezed. But yeah, so I've got a couple. I'm going to be slowly working on a live version of the podcast, and I wanted to kind of figure out live streaming. I've done it a couple times before with my phone, and this is on my laptop, because eventually at some point I kind of want to start teaching people that like the podcast ideas about telling your own bedtime stories. That would be like the genesis of any live version of Sleep With Me. But also, like, this is just so outside my comfort zone, so I figured this would be a good place to start. Looks good and great from West Virginia. Hopefully this is only going out on Periscope, because that's the only app I have loaded on my phone. But I think I was testing out this software because I figured maybe I could shoot it to Facebook Live and YouTube and eventually Twitch. Eventually, the main thing of trying to figure this out is like I'd like to start doing like video game replay bedtime stories. Tom's watching on Twitter. Yeah, so hopefully that's where it's coming through. But yeah, just trying to figure out the technology. But I guess figuring out the technology, a little bubbly water, which I would never have during the podcast. So yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. Thank you very much, Julian. Yeah, I've got to figure out how to get... I'm going to probably try to do some Red Dead Redemption bedtime story playthroughs or tape it or something. But yeah, anybody that's on here now, if you have any questions about the podcast, or we could just do a little mini AMA as I'm trying to experiment with figuring this stuff out. And people, like everyone that's out there that's sharing the podcast and listening to it. We just passed 4 years of making the show and 600. I'm going to put my phone up here. I don't think that's blocking it. And 600 episodes, and I couldn't have made it without all of you that listen to the show and support me. And really, in a way, like falling asleep to the podcast is something that kind of feeds it. And so I really appreciate it. I've really, in the past 4 years of making the show, have grown in ways that have impacted my life way beyond the podcast. And it's a lot of things I've learned from the listeners, and your vulnerabilities and your openness and your kindness and just like falling in love with making the podcast through hearing the stories of the podcast impact on people, and then wanting to keep making the podcast. So yeah, if you're out there, shoot me some questions. I don't know if anybody's checked out the Spoke app yet. I'll just I can always think of stuff to talk about in between questions, but it's an app from SiriusXM. We did 2 exclusive episodes from them, and you can download the app and check out the content at hearspoke.com/sleepwithme. That's HEARSPOKE.com/sleepwithme. There's one episode that's about autumn leaves, and it kind of did it in a way my dad had said, one of the early podcast episodes that he listens to, where I list things. I haven't done a lot of listing on that. Any VO experience prior to starting the podcast? No, that's from I Am a Stove, I think. No, I learned, let's see. I was, I didn't have any professional experience, and my amateur experience was limited to being the audiovisual club in high school and doing videos for our classroom news and stuff, and then being in videos with my friends and just stuff we did for fun. And then I grew up or whatever, and I moved away from kind of doing that stuff. And leading up to the years before they did the podcast, I was writing something we thought we'd put on YouTube or something. And the AV Club, oh, hey, books versus movies is there. I hate, that's the only thing that worries me about live streaming is breaking the character for people. But yeah, so I was writing some YouTube stuff, and we were trying to get it produced, and I'm not a very good actor, and that was one of the hang-ups that became a creative conflict that led to the project not moving forward, and that ended up with me starting the podcast, so it really worked out good. Yeah, sorry. I just got a haircut today, so it's more of my face than would normally be seen. But yeah, I hope that answers the AV question. And now you're gonna make me blush. But yeah, I learned from making the podcast. I mean, that's a great thing. Yeah, this is fresh fur too, John. By making the podcast is how I learned, and just making episodes, editing them, and listening to them, and then trying to make the next one just a tiny bit better. I mean, that's the great thing about podcasting is this mic that I have here, when I bought it was $35, and I think now this price has gone up on this one, but there's still other mics out there you can get for $30 or $40, so you can borrow one or buy a used one, and you can get started. This may be on Facebook, because I'm seeing some Facebook comments. If some people are watching on Facebook, I'm not able to monitor the chat. When did I realize I had the gift of telling stories to help strangers fall asleep? I mean, I did tell bedtime stories when I'd be on camping trips or group trips, and I felt comfortable enough to be goofy, and I'd be or in the park. I can remember at school, if we'd be out on in the spring day, everybody be lying around, and I would say, oh, give me some words, and I'll just make up a story about it. And I would always make up these stories, and they'd be very similar to the podcast. They'd be meandering stories with a lot of silly stuff. And, when you're making a story up on the spot, you have to have the freedom for it to not be perfect and not be super exciting. So, and that's kind of story that fits bedtime stories and chilling in the park stories or lying around looking at the stars stories. So yeah, I guess that. And I told I've always liked telling stories, and I just wanted something like the podcast. I for myself. How do you tell such surreal stories while being grounded in reality? Oh yeah, I think uh, Will Wheaton. Yeah, his stories were a little bit better than mine. But how do I tell surreal stories? I used to. I don't anymore. How many tell stories? Uh, Surreal stories that are grounded in reality. That's a good question. I think the stories, like one of the rules with the podcast is the stories have to have an end, and I have to get to that end. And normally I want the end to be mildly satisfying. So I think like, and I've done the podcast now for 600 episodes, so I have kind of like a time clock going in my head. So I'll have a good idea of like where my time is to fill up the 50, like even the stuff that's going to get it edited out, I'll be paying attention to how much time I'm using up, and I can almost sense it. Like, so having the story, either if it's a written story or it's a made up story on the spot, like knowing where it's eventually going, I think it helps keep it grounded in reality, knowing it's going to end. In the times that I've done, like, stories have gotten out of control, like either the first act, if you want to call it that, like was too long, will be like occasionally where I'll have like a 2 or 3 part story. I hope that answers that question. Book versus movies, we got to do it. I should have just got to. I'll just try to go see it a second time. But yeah, I hope that answers that question. Does anybody or any other questions? And I'll fill up time. But check out the Spoke app. That's what I was talking about. Like, I have an episode where I kind of list all these good spots, like all the states and all the places you can see leaves. And it's just kind of a silly show that I haven't done in one with lists. Favorite musicians. Today hey, Tin Man Mike, I recognize you right away. Favorite musicians, I love all kinds of music. I watched Beetlejuice last night, so I have a lot of Calypso and Harry Belafonte on my mind today. And then also I was listening to a lot of Ween today because it came up somewhere, like the Mollusk. And once I start thinking about those songs, they're so catchy, they just get stuck in my head. How do you plan to grow your show to keep the show going? Do I get enough listener support? Okay, remind me to come back to that question. But yeah, so those are two musicians off the top of my head. And then I was reading Paper Towns by John Green, and John Coltrane's mentioned in that, so I was thinking I've been listening to a lot of John Coltrane when I'm in bed reading. How do I plan on growing the revenue of the show? With the sleep podcast, that is really hard. I've been trying to figure it out for 2 years, and the show still isn't there, just because the nature of the sleep podcast is it's harder to get sponsors and keep sponsors, because all podcast sponsorship depends on the people, like direct. All sponsorships either paid upfront or postpaid based on how many people buy something that you talk about on the show. And it's really hard when there's people, like when people are falling asleep, it just adds this extra barrier. And the same for listener support. Right now I'm just trying to find the way to get to 4,000 patrons, which will enable us to keep making 12 shows, because the production side of the show, most of those costs are kind of fixed of how many hours. There's about 100 hours a week that have to get done. If we get to 4,000 patrons, I can hire someone part-time to help with some of those hours. But the bit broader issue right now, long-term, is like, can we keep enough sponsor support to keep the archives free or get a huge amount of new listener support? Because the bandwidth costs for a podcast like ours are, it's tough to figure out, but I think there's so many people the podcast helps. I mean, we get millions and millions of downloads every month, and it's something I get really stressed about, and I tend to like want it to be instantly solved, and I lose my patience, and I get worried, and it might just be a matter of cutting back in the show or cutting back and not having archives. But I guess I'm also stubborn. I think the podcast is best at 3 times a week, and all the old archive shows free. Is this my full-time job? No, I've been subsidizing the show for 4 years. I don't think I'll ever work on the podcast. I mean, I work full-time on the podcast, like 60 hours a week. Oh, thanks, Robin. And I'm figuring out transitioning, but I will still need, I mean, right now I'm going to transition into working on the podcast about 60 hours a week, and then developing a live show, which would be a separate source of, hopefully, of income for the podcast, and developing some other things. Just because, the podcast, I have to supplement. And I have to supplement now in more creative ways because I haven't been able to manage a regular day job. It's been really hard the past year trying to manage a day job, like a regular job, and the podcast. So I'm trying to figure it out. But I mean, literally, we have so many listeners. If like 10% of listeners supported the show, I'd be able to have a whole team of people working with me. So it's just a matter of figuring out doing that. I mean, it literally is just listener support. Like a tiny percentage of listeners supporting the show at $1, $5, $10 a month could at least make it sustainable and keep the archives free. So I think like by the end of the year, we'll have a clear picture and it'll be possible. Just because I love making the show. 3 times a week is live support on Patreon. Yeah, no, I don't, Miles. Yeah, I don't have time for hobbies really. I mean, the podcast is like, I mean, that's what coming up on 4 years. What I decided was, at 4 years of making the show, I would make some changes and to live a more balanced life. So I'm trying to figure it out over the next few months. That I have a little bit more time because working 100 hours a week isn't healthy or sustainable or a good example. And so we'll figure it out. My hobbies though, like I like going to movies. Like later tonight in like a little while, I'll probably do some Star Trek for the podcast and take notes. And then later on tonight, let's see, like I'll probably watch some TV or something. But movies. I love going to the movies. What part of the U.S. is my accent from? Robin asks. She's from Canadian. She's Canadian and she's fascinated by it. So I grew up in Central New York, upstate New York, Syracuse, and Syracuse kind of has like its own interesting accent. It's almost like has this, now that I've lived away from there, like almost like a kind of Wisconsin twinge to it that I hear. And then, so I lived in Syracuse. My dad's from the Bronx. I lived in New York City for a little while. Then I've lived in California for like a long time. Like, what year is it? 2017. So almost 20 years. I guess like that's where my accent is. Mostly Syracuse, but by way of like living in the Bay Area for 20 years. But I think like Syracuse, like the podcast that puts you to sleep. I was just on a podcast. A person's from New England. I like how New Englanders say podcast. No, that's pod. I can't do it now. Saskatchewan podcast, something like that. I think that's like I would consider that a cute way of saying podcast. I like it. check out the Spoke app. There's also a on location episode from Golden Gate Park that I did, where I'm like riding a bike around this lake in Golden Gate Park. Who else is out there? What do we got? We got 15 people watching the stream. I guess it's only on. I wonder why my OBS is like not showing me anything. But yeah, options. I guess it's not that important. So what do we got? Miles. Who else is out there? What other questions might you have? Haven't had dinner tonight. I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner later. Here's like, so with the live show, I'm kind of working on the idea of like telling your own bedtime stories. Like, think about like what you get out of the podcast. Like, ideally, sleep with podcasts. There you go. That's it. Podcast. And the safe place that it creates for you. And ideally, it makes this kind of warm environment where you feel like your needs are kind of being attended to. And imagine doing that for somebody else, like whether it's someone like you're really close to or someone you're friends with or something like that. And then start to think about how do you tell a bedtime story. And I'm going to try to start unpacking like little techniques that people can do and use in your own bedtime story to make it easy, so you can say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to just try this, like to take the pressure off. So I don't know if that's something that sounds fun to everybody. I mean, most people that listen to Sleep With Me, you're the ones that need the bedtime stories, but I don't know, I think it'd be a fun experiment instead of just boring people to sleep. I'm trying to think what other questions normally come up when I do AMAs. I start out, I don't fall asleep to my own podcast. I'm on my couch right now, so I'm not in the climbing closet where I report. Is it weird to hear people criticizing Vocal Fry when your listeners find it so helpful? I mean, it's a really like it's such a strange thing to be like a loaded word, but it feels like that a lot of people use it aggressively against people, like and that it just gets on people's nerves, like, and they say, oh, but I mean, and it's like, oh, what's the difference between vocal fry? Because like awesome, like that's the kind of vocal fry that it seems like the more aggressive people seem to rail against the most. And it feels like even with my show, yeah, I hear about every day I hear about my voice and how people don't like it. I mean, I hear from a lot more people that the podcast puts people to sleep. But yeah, definitely hear at least once a day from someone that hates my voice and or my style. And that's a good idea. I have to think of I'm gonna definitely have the live show, figure out some guest stars. But yeah, like it wasn't like I picked Vocal Fry, or I don't even know what I'm doing. Like it's like when I go to record the podcast, it's just about being in the safe place and creating someplace that orally or that makes people feel secure and safe and cared for and warm. And it's just like when I'm slowing down and saying, hey, you're up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep, well, welcome. It's just kind of where my voice goes. And actually, like, so yeah, I don't understand it. I think it's just a way of that for most people. It's just that that's the specific thing they're picking out that they don't like. When maybe uh, they they're not able to voice other things they don't like, or they just don't like it, period, or they're having a gut reaction. I don't know. It always confuses me, and sometimes I get really mad. But at this point, I get so much uh, like I don't know. I'm kind of used to being like, it's not like bullied, but um, like a steady stream of. I get so many nice comments and so many people sharing their true experience with me, and then I get people that just seem like they feel like they're lashing out at me. I mean, and even when I say it in the intro, it's kind of like, oh, I know there's a huge portion of people that aren't going to like the podcast and that are going to have a strong reaction to it, a negative reaction. And but it's like this open thing. It's kind of like, okay, like, so it kind of, that's the only thing that like gets me is like, why are you lashing out at me, like, or attacking me, when that happens? But I mean, there's a lot of other people that get a lot worse, and I guess like it's this bigger question, right? Of like, what do we do about that? Like, how is like how I don't know. It's not for a sleep podcast, but it's like, how do we deal with this lashing out behavior, or people being mean, I guess? And then is it a mirror? I mean, sometimes I do see it as like, what is this going on with my internal critic? Or is there a way this is like holding up a mirror for me to look at myself or see something in myself? Or, sometimes it bums me out. Yeah. Yeah, it's like definitely need a world with more love and more support, more support, and even those bullies, I think, don't know how to help them, or to change them, and I think that's what feels like a lot of us are struggling right with now is like, how do we dialogue about this stuff when it feels so entrenched? But I don't want to talk about politics or interpersonal stuff too much, because but I mean, I think the thing is like self-care is an important part of it, and finding ways to empower yourself, positive empowerment, and trying to empower others and empower other people's voices. That's one of the most beautiful things about podcasting, and as it grows, is like empowering all these voices, whether they're cultural voices or political voices or just artistic voices, or voices of interest, of voices of passion about niche things. What am I drinking? It is it's sparkling water. It's a mashup of black cherry and dragon fruit. It's pretty good. It's one of my. It's a little pricey, but it was funny. I was just saying to myself, I'm like, wait a second. My self-critic was on my case about like spending $3.99 for an 8-pack of water. So any other questions? Or anybody see any movies or anything interesting? I saw Blade Runner. I've seen it. I saw Lego Lego Ninjago. I can't even say it. Lego Ninjago. What other? Anybody counting down the day? Anybody have their Star Wars tickets yet? I don't have my Star Wars tickets yet. Or let's see, what other? I saw Wind River. That was a very intense movie. Not for bedtime. I think it is more bedtime than Wind River. Wind River is so intense. Or any documentaries. Rewatching The Wire. Whew, yeah. I've been meaning to rewatch season 4, just because I haven't Sorry, I'm not making eye contact with you guys. I've been meaning to rewatch season 4 because I kind of tuned out during it a little bit with the kids. Get the family around the TV. Yeah, I mean, what about Beetlejuice? What is the recommended age range for like Beetlejuice? I feel like I watched that last night. Still a classic. Season 2 is underrated. Of The Wire, I think. Let's see. Season 2 had more of Stringer Bell, right? I think that was a good one. Oh, the Unions ones. Oh, with the two. Okay, so that was okay, the shipping, and then so that was all season 1 with oh, because then Stringer Bell, season 4 was the kids in the press, right? And season 3 was when they like attempted to decriminalize drugs. So yeah, sleep with me. The podcast puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. I'm trying to think what other stuff I've been working on. Let's see. I recorded yesterday. What was yesterday? Thursday. I did an episode about Agatha after the glass slipper episode, and did a complete episode, which can be tough to fit in an entire episode. Any sports teams I'm a fan of. Golden State Warriors, because I live in the Bay Area. And I cannot wait for the NBA season. I realize it's not the most fair season, but just to see, I'm a big fan of like basketball, so just to see some of these teams play, like Houston and Oklahoma City and Cleveland and Boston and the Pelicans. I mean, I love the Warriors, but I love like especially the second half of like NBA games. And see what the Clippers are going to be like, and the Lakers are going to be like. See how the Knicks do. Yeah, it was crazy offseason. So I'm excited for the NBA season. I'm excited for the TNT team. Yeah, Spurs. Like it'll be interesting in the West to kind of see, like with all those teams in there. And I don't know how many times they all play each other. Is it 4 times in the season? I mean, just to see like Oklahoma City and the Rockets play 4 times, and then both those teams play the Spurs 4 times, and then maybe they play Cleveland twice, and then the Warriors play all of them, and Grizzly, yeah. So it'll be exciting. I like Arsenal for football, soccer, and I don't know. I work on the podcast on Sundays, so I don't watch a lot of NFL. So I kind of dropped off of that. It was about to I'll watch Champions League or Premier League soccer on the mornings on the weekend because I can kind of work and watch that. Excuse me, I'm gonna burp. So that's why I don't consume sparkling water during the podcast. I think for the first year or two I drank a lot of sparkling water when I was recording. And you'd hear the outtakes. I would sometimes release them. I would be ripping these huge burps. But I don't. Now I drink coconut water. Aunt Christy and Carol are listeners. 3 generations of sleepers. Tell everyone I said hi at my house. And I don't know. I think I told you this, but my favorite cousin, unless any of my other cousins are listening right now, one of my favorite cousins will say his name's Miles. Speaking of it, Ziggy just hopped on here. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Anybody else got any recommendations? Any music? When's Stranger Things season 2 start? Oh my God! So I just recorded an episode with Bill, Jerry. So Jerry asked, "How's my imaginary friend Bill?" And believe it or not, that's pretty crazy timing because. I think it was Wednesday night. Do you have my apartment tapped? 27th, that's when Stranger Things comes. So I did record an episode with Bill. What was it even about now? It was interview. Me and Bill were in the studio together. Oh, we attempted to return to because I failed all my cloud exams in grammar school, and so Bill joined me in the studio kind of for a healing journey to kind of re-educate myself about clouds. And yeah, and then I have the first episode with BrainBots. So I have an episode coming up maybe in 3 weeks. I don't know the exact release date. Like the Bill one will probably be in 4 to 5 weeks. And I have an episode coming up with my BrainBots, 5 BrainBots, and I attempt to convince them to go to see Hamilton. I'm a big fan of Americana music, Tiffany, and like all country. I don't know if I've been exposed to enough country music, maybe like classic country. I kind of almost burned myself out of alt country maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe it was longer than that. Maybe 10 years ago. Like just listening to it constantly. Oh, I love Taylor Swift. I love pop music. And I think she makes great pop music. I didn't listen to the new album, I guess, because I'm still, I don't know if you can hear Koa's in the background. She's taking care of some. Hold on 1 second. She was taking care of some fly. How many hours do I spend recording or making the show? But yeah, I love Taylor Swift. I love pop music. Is that Kathy? Recording the show. Turnpike Troubadours. I'll check it out. Recording the show, it takes about twice as long to record the show as it does the finished product. So, maybe even longer. I probably spend just recording the show, because you got to sit down, you got to take breaks. Maybe it takes 3 times as long, because I don't know. I always struggle with either recording in segments versus recording never in one take, but in one 2.5 hour session. I'd say if I was going to record an episode from start to finish, I don't know if I never record. I'll go through this because this will be interesting. And if people have questions, just shoot them at me. But yeah, if I was to record a whole episode, that would be an hour. It would probably take me about 2.5 hours straight, but probably 3 with like sitting down and getting ready to record for a 1 hour episode. So normally when I sit down to record, I did this live stream instead, sometimes Saturday night I'll record, but I'll sit down, I'll prep. So to record to prep, I have to know what I'm recording, know what stuff I have to do, okay, what thank yous am I going to do, what release, what have we fallen behind on that might have to be something's missing and we have to record it, what are we going to do, talk about, promote Jonathan Mann's songs, or do we have we don't really have a lot of prepaid sponsors, so it's mostly what am I going to talk about this week that people might buy, and then so trying to figure out what to that's ahead of time, so it's kind of figuring that stuff out, then kind of deciding when in order. You could search for him, Ziggy. Jonathan Mann. He's on YouTube. But Tiffany, ask me that question again when I'm done with this. Or actually, I can kind of answer that in here. So in a perfect world, if I was sitting down to record and I was going to record an episode, I would sit down. The first thing to record are the thank yous, and that helps me put me in the right frame of mind, that real people are listening to this podcast and who they are, and it helps warm up my voice and calm me down, because it's like I'm going from to this whole strange headspace that's a little bit different than normal. So I'll record the thank yous. Then I might record a teaser, which is like the very beginning of the show, where we're like, hey, you got to make sure to become a patron, make sure to check out Jonathan Mann's songs. Then I would, depending on my mood, usually lately it's been, I'll either record the opening or the bulk of the episode. Also depends on kind of how much time I have. Like if I don't have 2.5 hours, like it's like, okay, I only have time to record an opening now, and then I'll record the bulk of the episode the next night. So it just depends, but it would be like I would record an opening and then I would record the episode. And then to go to Tiffany's question, it kind of depends on what style of episode. So the openings are always improv or made up on the spot. I guess it's not improv because it's just me rambling. Sometimes I'll have a note that I'll have with me, Tiffany, that'll kind of say, I don't know, onomatopoeia or something like that. I don't think I've done an opening about that, but like maybe some word, or maybe a combination of words, or maybe something like I saw the squirrels do squirrels dance or something. So I'll have the note there, or I'll have something in my mind. Usually if it's not written down, it doesn't stay in my mind. And then I'll start the opening and get into it, and then have the note there, which is kind of like a security blanket. I don't always use it. And then sometimes I'll mention it. Oh, I got this on my mind. And so I'll ramble, and I'll take a lot of breaks. You can even hear in this live stream, I have a lot of filler words and stuff like that. But I do take takes. I never re-record anything. But if I'm in the middle of an intro and my doorbell rings, or my dog starts barking, or I sneeze, or I suddenly have to use the facilities, I will take a break and then just pick up where I last left off. Or if I say something, or I don't like how something sounded, or one of the most important things, so I'll have my headphones on the whole time so I can hear everything as it's being recorded. So I also have to listen for things like mouth noises, so I'll do a lot of retakes if there's a mouth noise, because it's a really distracting sound. It's like a click, and to get it out in post-production affects, you can take it out, but then it affects the like overall fidelity of the episode. So just like trying to get it as clean as it can going in. Fresh squeeze, I'll try to come to that in a question in a second, but ask it again in like 5 minutes if I don't answer it. But yeah, to keep it, I do use a pop filter, which is like do I use a pop filter? I think I just I'm trying to think what my setup is now. I think I just have this thing on my mic, like this, like is kind of like a pop filter. Yeah, on my current mic that I use. But yeah, so I'll take breaks, and I'll like do retakes, as many retakes as I need, but in the process. So the editing of the show is always linear. Like the content's never getting changed order-wise, but there might be 4 or 5 takes in a row of something. Pop filter is just something that like between the mic and your mouth, to get plosives, like plosives, and it can create a little bit of so this is like a foam pop filter that goes on the mic, and the mic also has a built-in one, but sometimes pop filters are I just do, like when I do stand, I'll move away from the mic, so I'll say, Scooter, hey Scooter. I'll just do that. I mean, that's a great thing about monitoring your audio, is you can hear it, and then taking second takes. Like when I'm doing characters, it'll take me a while to warm up. Like I usually have a phrase so I can get into the character, but like that'll get edited out. Like, let's see. It's hard for me not monitoring my audio to do any, but Scooter, like that. Like, or Ray is like, oh, my friend, oh, my friends, my friends. But he's a little harder because I got to hear it kind of. So that's how I record. I'm reading Paper Towns by John Green right now, and I really am enjoying it. And then the last book I read before that, did I read something in between it and Paper Towns? I read it, and then I think Paper Towns was the next book I read. But yeah, then when I'm recording an episode, it's the same way. It's just depends on the episode. So Thursday episodes are written on an outline, so I'll be referring to the outline, and I'll take a lot of breaks to page back and forth through the outline. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Like to page back, and I might have to take extra takes, and it can be tough because that can be a lot longer of a session, so I might have to get interrupted somehow, and then I'll kind of I got to be very careful not to lose the continuity. Tuesday episodes are made up, so those ones are a little bit less. Sorry, my face itches. Like a little bit less written. I'm trying to refer to everything in my head, so that ideally they flow better. But those ones I'll procrastinate because it's so stressful. And then the Sunday shows, I'll have a notebook. Well, this is like a notebook that I have for a Thursday show. Like that was the writing I was doing this morning. But for a Sunday show, I'll have like a ton of notes. Then I'll have the episode running, and if I can get a transcript, I'll have a transcript up. Or I'll have the episode running with the closed captions on. So then I'm just kind of referring to all those things. So that's like the recording process. And the editing process, right now I use an app called Hindenburg. Thanks, Cole. When did I say here fishy fishy? I got to think about that. But yeah, so I edit on a program called Hindenburg. But for the first like 2 or 3 years, I think for the first 3 years of the podcast, I used Audacity, which is a free program. And then someone I couldn't see the tweets, I think. So yeah, I edit on Hindenburg, and then the two people that edit the show, they edit on different platforms, but we all use the same plugins. And then I do the final mix. So they'll send me the things they've edited, and then I'll listen to them. And I don't do much re-editing. Like I'd be more likely to send them a note and say, "Hey, this doesn't work," or "Can you address this?" But I still do the final mix. Why do I pay to have my episodes transcribed? Game of Thrones are our most popular episodes by far, Tiffany. Other than the all intro ones have been really high downloads too. I don't know, John. Like I think one thing is like from experience knowing that making a podcast 3 times a week can leave you with a lot of regrets because the train is moving so fast and I'm just constantly laying down track, and that's my main job, that it becomes hard to also be the planner and the post planner. And so when the opportunity came up and the price point was reasonable to have machine transcription through like a local company, I was like, let's just start doing it, because then like whatever. Now I think I look back and I've been doing it for 150 episodes or something maybe. So it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I think at some point I will be exploring other opportunities with the content I've developed on the podcast, whether that's translating the podcast or, no, thanks, Miles. Yeah. So it just feels like something that the podcast is just so massive in the amount of episodes. Do I ever consider having non-sleep episodes? I tried that a couple summers ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I just found like it detracted. The regular sleep with me just takes so much time that it became a distraction, and I was afraid it would impact the quality of sleep with me. So I stopped doing it. It was called the Summer Sleep Show, I think. But yeah, at some point I would like to. I have other ideas or stuff around podcasting, but right now it's just like realistically, my time is really, really filled up. So it's like I got to keep my eyes on making the best possible Sleep With Me podcast I can. If I decide at some point to cut back on Sleep With Me, then I'll start reassessing, well, how much time does that free up and what else would I do? But I'd much rather be in a position where I could keep Sleep With Me at the quality it is and the release schedule it is and be bringing on help as opposed to cutting back. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see more stuff about positive examples of good sleep and good sleep hygiene and stuff. Did I miss any questions in there? As I slam down my sparkling water. Okay, so I'm gonna hop off here in about 5 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. But yeah, thank you so much for stopping by this live stream. I have no idea if it went out anywhere other than Periscope, and I can't get OBS is running, but I can't get it open right now. Of course, I'm doing it on my computer, which is just like a couple of years old MacBook Air, so it doesn't really have the firepower anyway. But it seems to be working. So here, let me move this over. Let me see what's going on over. I don't know. I was trying this website called Restream out to push the podcast to other places. No, the wildfires are still pretty bad. Yeah, it's really terrible. And yeah, everybody here, I was just talking to someone before of like, we're really thinking about all the people that are directly impacted. And I think I guess we're on YouTube. Sorry, everybody on YouTube, that I'm missing your questions. And maybe I'll try to stretch this out. Let me see if I can get over to YouTube and see what questions came up. But yeah, it's really something. For this, I think I'm thinking about it with ditching the Macs with maybe with this live streaming software. Okay, I see everybody on here now. Okay, I'm on YouTube. Let me see what these questions are. Serenity, thank you if you're still out there for listening. I want to thank you a lot. Chutipong. Frank, thank you. Miss Edwards, not how I pictured you. Okay, my phone's got 10% battery. A little surreal. This is everybody on Facebook or on YouTube. Mangala, happy to help. Alex, did you know you were mentioned on the Tim Ferriss podcast? Yeah, it's Mike Birbiglia. It's the coolest thing ever. It was like blown away. I'm a huge fan of his. Put you right to sleep. I'm gonna do more real-time recipes. Yeah, I gotta cook. I gotta figure out some new things to cook on real-time recipes. Matthew, I just wanted to say thanks. Everybody's the best, man. Favorite movie I've seen at the movies? Hayden asked. Oof, and why? I think you should listen to what was the episode? The 3 favorite movies I've seen at the movies were when I was a kid. The summer I saw Goonies, Back to the Future, and A View to a Kill. And I know one of those doesn't quite fit in in the pop culture lexicon is the same as the other two, but it's just my age. And I saw Beetlejuice in the movies too, and I just rewatched that last night. Vivian, I'm glad I can help you look forward to sleep. Emotionally, Hayden, I don't know if you're still on there, Hayden. The most episode I'm most proud of emotionally, though. I mean, maybe the video game podcast, because I really was vulnerable and honest. Trying to think. I still think Bird Bath. I think I've had some other ones that I've been really proud of since then. I mean, this isn't just the leaf peeping episode I did at First Spoke. I'm really proud of, but I think Bird Bath was like a real creative high point for me as far as just satisfaction. Not anything specific about the thing or that I thought it was comparatively better than other shows. It just felt very satisfying. Yeah, the one I did right after the election, I think in trying to figure out how to move forward with unity has always been a part of and stay welcoming and open. Subbed this week, Bradley. Yeah, sorry, on the people. So yeah, I think I lost a lot of people. Oh, there's Hayden still on there. That's good. So I did get Alex with an X. Sands Day at the Beach. Oh yeah, that was a good one. That was another one. That was one that was surprising. Like those are the ones I like sometimes that are like a total surprise. Like I got on the bus just like the listeners did, and so that was really fun. If anybody on YouTube that's on YouTube, I have the chat up here. Sorry, I didn't realize it was. This is the first time testing this live stream out. If we can get it up on, hopefully it's not up on Facebook, but it might be. But yeah, I can answer a couple questions on YouTube if anybody else has any questions. Cool. And eventually maybe I can get this stream to Twitch. I got to figure out how to get stuff off of Twitch onto my computer. Sarah, I've seen your comments on YouTube, Sarah. Black Fire. I'm glad podcast. Thanks for commenting on our YouTube channel. Oh, Alex asked how to get started doing this. The podcast, it was like I've like loved podcasts since I started listening to them, and I had the idea. I was like, man, why isn't there any like grown-up bedtime stories that are like silly for people that have like an odd sensibility, but want like a kind of like a friend, just like when you talk to friends on the phone or hang out all night. And so I was like, well, let me try to make it. And then I kept putting it off because I was really nervous that I didn't know what I was doing. And then at some point I had another project that imploded, actually. Like I was writing stuff for YouTube or for like short web comedy. And that project wasn't creatively, we separated, and I had some time that I had been dedicating to writing for that, and I was like, oh, let's start that Weird Sleep podcast, and let's just start making it and see how it goes. And that was 4 years ago this month, and I just started testing stuff out and putting it out, and here we are, all of us together. Thanks, Justine. Hayden, listen every night. Cool. All right, well, I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. I'll stick around here till 8:30 because I really appreciate that people are interested in the podcast and interested in how it's made, or whatever. Like, you're really the fuel for the podcast. So you sleeping drives the podcast. Bow, I'm a dog. Nice to meet you. Night from Japan. Am I married or do I have kids? I'm not married, but I do have a daughter, a 10-year-old daughter. Thanks, Alex, with an I to the X. yeah, hopefully I'll be in Japan at some point. Why was I thinking? Something I was thinking about the other day. But yeah. Always the bow, that makes me think of Bow Wow Wow. So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. Make sure to check out, if anybody can share, can you share? I'm just using the webcam on my laptop, Hayden. So I don't know if it's coming. And then it's going through OBS, which I guess is a streaming software, to restream and then getting pushed to YouTube and Periscope and possibly I think I could push it to Facebook Live, but I was trying to figure it out, and I was like, well, let's just start streaming and see what happens. So, and then just in case anybody's new in the last few minutes, like, so this isn't where I record the podcast, but this is just my couch. Like bandwidth in where I record the podcast is pretty terrible. So, yeah, I'm trying to think, what camera, any other, questions. But, if anybody can share, in the chat, go to, hearspoke.com/sleepwithme to check out the Spoke app. It's in Android and Google Play, and it's a free app, and it's free to listen to the podcast. And there's just 2 exclusive episodes on there. And there's like audio comments. I have to check them today. But they, like, you can leave an audio comment. If you leave an audio comment on there, I'll try to comment back on the audio comment. It could be fun. There seems like there's some new people on Periscope. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat there out of the corner of my eye too. So if anybody has any questions here, I'm going to try to eat dinner. I think I'm going to have leftovers. I had a lunch. Tiffany, thank you for becoming a patron. It's going to keep it going. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at Justine's question on YouTube. Do I look forward to recording the podcast throughout the day? And the reason I'm laughing is like, no. I mean, no, because it's just so stressful. It's like literally, I do enjoy it at points, but like it is like I'm not a big procrastinator because I don't have a lot of time. Hey, Monica Cat. No, I'm just on my couch. So Justine, I'll like, I have to like, I don't have a ton of time to procrastinate, but I'll always catch myself procrastinating, even like a 15-minute procrastination, because I'm just like nervous about my critic wanting to be good and wanting it to be perfect, or worrying about it's still outside my comfort zone even after 600 episodes. It probably always will be, and I guess I've gotten good at the good thing is having a 3-time-a-week schedule with deadlines just helps me just get it done, even when I'm outside of my comfort zone. Is that Mon Kiki Cat? An episode of Outtakes, Ziggy. I think I did. If you go on our SoundCloud page, there's a lot of old. They should be up there for free. There should actually be a playlist on SoundCloud of old outtakes, but now the editors, there's probably less outtakes. Oh, there's a soundboard. I don't know where it is, of a couple outtakes from my editor, Carl. So if you, I don't know what social media you use. If you tweet at me, I guess you're on Periscope, so tweet at me. And I can try to link you the soundboard. It's just me swearing and stuff like that. So a lot of the outtakes are me losing my temper at myself. I wasn't scheduled to. This is like an experimental live thing. Jalen, good morning. Justine, I hope that answers your question though. Like, I think it's just once I start recording, I guess, yeah, I don't know if I've Ghost Adventures. What's that? Um, just recording is really hard. And really scary. I guess it's just scary for me. Um, I don't find myself dreading it, but I just catch myself, well, maybe I should work on this first. And I'm like, no, no. And I do like to make sure my voice is warmed up. And a lot of times I'm recording at night. But as I try to change my schedule around, the summer horse episode, that was a good one. I was really happy with that episode, actually. That might be, I know people had asked, that was another episode I was really pleased with. Oh, that's fine, Hayden. Thank you. But yeah, that summer episode was fun. Was that what I said about the horse? Yeah. I was thinking about it the other day because I was stressed. I was in another situation where I was very stressed, and it was a social situation. And I was thinking about how some people can just pick up on your body language, especially animal people, because that's part of their job. Carole King, those were I enjoy those Carole King episodes a lot too. Well, cool. Did I ask Summer that? That's pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, the funniest thing was I was having that real conversation, and people were like, after we got back from the horseback ride, people were like, were you on Bluetooth the whole time? And I was like, no, I was talking to Summer the whole time. I was talking to the horse. And everybody's laughing. They're like, I thought you were on the phone with someone. I was like, that's rude. You're on the phone the whole horse ride? And people that were walking by, they probably thought the same thing. Like, who's this guy that's going for a horseback ride and just talking on his Bluetooth? And I was like, no. I was conversing with the horse. We were having a moment. Paul, do I still wish I was delivering furniture? Probably not. So I guess that's a good way to look at it. I definitely prefer recording the podcast to delivering furniture. But yeah, I definitely. So that's a good way to look at it. It's like, well, I could be delivering furniture. Hayden wants to know what my favorite video game is. My favorite of all time. I mean, probably some of the adventure games from Sierra. Hey Carla, yeah, I hate breaking the illusion for people. But yeah, those were some of my favorite video games, and those little adventure games. Most of them were most of the ones I played too much were games that I didn't even like so much as a kind of self-destructive habit of escapism. So Space Quest and King's Quest, those games. Space Quest is probably my favorite video game. Space Quest 2. Yeah, and King's Quest. Yeah, Hayden. Yeah, King's Quest 1, 2, and 3. But I remember one summer, me and my friends, or one holiday break or something, we all played, I think it was Space Quest 2 together, gathered around this computer and had this collective experience adventuring. And it was very formative and pleasurable. And we were geeking out before it was even a word. Yeah. So that's probably my Space Quest, and then King's Quest we played, and I think King's Quest 3, it might have been the first video game I bought with my paper route money or something like that. So, yeah. I don't know. Are there any other questions out there? I hope I didn't blow up too many people's minds that had never seen Scoots recording the podcast. But I'm just trying to connect more with everybody. My dog is right next to me. She's sleeping right now because she had carrots and dog food for dinner. She's recovering. She had some surgery last week, so she's recovering. She's being very patient. Now she's looking at me because she knows I'm talking about her. But yeah, she's doing good. She's here snoring. So yeah, so I hope it didn't blow too many people's minds. I'm sorry, Carla. I hope your red eye or whatever worked out. Thank you, Spoonie, for the love for Koa. I'm glad Sarah enjoyed King's Quest. So Carla, I'm originally from Syracuse, New York. Then I lived in New York in the Bronx. That's where I went to school. Then I lived in Los Angeles. Or East Los Angeles. I did a 1-year teaching, volunteer teaching program there, and then I've been in the Bay Area since then. So, oh really? So yeah, people always ask like, where's that? Where's your accent from? And I guess it's like because Syracuse is like, that's how I fell in love with Lake Ontario, which I miss. I miss the lake already. But yeah, so my accent is kind of like Syracuse's accent is a little bit Wisconsin-y. Oh, so I went to Fordham, is the school I went to in the Bronx, JC. And my dad is originally from the Bronx. I'm glad to help Carla. Am I going to do a Halloween episode? Yeah, I'm thinking about it. It's hard with the podcast because it's like I'm always recording. Like it's hard. Like I'm planning some holiday stuff, and I've got to and then this whole Star Trek thing has thrown me off with the Star Trek Discovery and trying to figure out how to deal with that. So maybe tomorrow, I got to see what my schedule's like. Maybe I can do a Beetlejuice episode. I'd like to do a holiday or Halloween special episode. It's just hard because I'm usually recording for episodes that are going to come out a month and a half from now. It's hard planning, but that's not an excuse. I'll think tomorrow. I'll try to figure out maybe the Garfield Halloween special or something. Hayden, how often do people ask to do an interview with me? Not too often. It usually comes in streaks. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do more podcast interviews, but a lot of those I'm trying to reach out and just try to get on any podcast I can to spread the word about the show. You could anybody that wants to interview me, dearscooter@gmail. But yeah, as far as print, that's like what I prefer, just because it's in my comfort zone. It'll go in streaks. I don't think I've done any print interviews in a while, but yeah, sometimes it'll be like 3 or 4 in a month, and then it'll go like 4 or 5 months and no one will ask. But it's a great way to promote the podcast and let more people know about it. Is this the first time, Jalen asks, this is the first time I've streamed in about, I did a couple other streams this week, and I'm trying to build up momentum and energy around the show here, and trying to find new ways to connect. But yeah, usually I stream for a little while, and then it gets outside my comfort zone, and then I dial it back. But yeah, it's been probably a year, maybe a little bit. Yeah, about a year since I've been regularly live streaming. Alex, you're welcome. Alex with an E to the X, and we have an Alex with an I to the X. Syracuse is pretty close to Canada. Alex with an I to the X. Yeah. Stevens, I'm putting you to sleep. Yeah. That might be interesting. I want to do more episodes like I love doing the on location episodes. They take a lot longer, but I would like to do ones like where you're someplace and then there's a Sleep With Me episode you could listen to while you're in the location. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll spend the last 5 minutes. I'm going to switch it up here and start answering a couple more questions before I say goodnight. Yeah, Carla, this has been a year where we've had to really learn what, I don't know, like not, it's been a tough year for everybody, and we're trying to learn what it means to be kind and what it means to have boundaries though too, and to say that's not okay, and to understand, and I just try to make it a warm, safe place for everybody, and say, hey, this place is open to all. That's not always the easiest thing, and it's a podcast that puts you to sleep, and some people are, this is their first time seeing me, and couldn't do it without you. Those of you that are just listen a few times, or those of you that accidentally are catching the stream and don't listen to the podcast, and you're like, what is this? What am I witnessing? Is this some sort of strange whispering message? What's going on with this man? Why is he talking this way? Well, I am talking this way because I make a podcast that puts you or anybody else to sleep. I do it with a bedtime story. And all you need to do, anybody that's listening, except if you're on the flip side of the globe or you work the second or the third shift, anybody else, you can get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. Me, I'm going to fire up my microwave and get out my leftovers from yesterday, and then I'm probably going to fire up Hulu and catch up on a little TV. But good night. Thank you, all of you, for checking this live stream out. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for your kindness and sharing your stories. And get in bed. It's time to get cozy. There's no better time to start getting cozy than the autumn, the late autumn. When your feet, for me, it's when my feet start to get cold. They say, "Hey, do you realize it's autumn? You got to start tucking us in." So whether it's your feet, or maybe some people get cold elbows, it's a time for the podcast that puts you to sleep, and I couldn't do it without all of you. So good night. Thanks. And also there'll be like an awkward 6 or 7 minutes while I try to figure out how to end the live stream, because I can't even get the window open for OBS. So it'll probably be running even later when I'm like talking to my dog and singing. But good night. Okay, so I'll just do this live though. I may have too many windows open is the thing. So if you're still here, just trying to figure this out. That's Twitter. And anybody that's still watching, I'm just trying to, maybe I'll just quit OBS and see what happens. Maybe I could stop the stream over on Restream here. Let's see what happens when I do that. I think that worked. Maybe not. Didn't work, Drew. Still streaming. Still streaming. Check. All right, this is Drew. I'm glad you're here. This is time for our live stream. Second show of the night. The tech show. The podcast that puts you in a Oh, maybe I should stick with. Okay, I'm just gonna hit quit on OBS here and see what happens. Oh wait. Oh wait. I think I might be close here. Let me move my phone. Oh wait. Okay. I wonder how. Or you wish to exit now. Let's just stop streaming. Okay, everybody. Good night. Thank you so much.